There are three major consoles on the market right now, but unfortunately one of them seems to be falling behind. Why is that? Is there a reason? Can we find a solution?
Hot take!
It's been really interesting taking a look at Microsoft and the Xbox this generation. You see, last time around with the Xbox 360, it really wasn't competing head-to-head with the Wii because, well, who really could? It was competing with the PlayStation 3 and seemed to take it every single time. Unfortunately, though, with the Xbox One, well, the stages have not really replayed themselves in the same way, and we're starting to see kind of a bad turnout for Xbox that really hasn't seemed to kind of reverse in any way.
Yeah, for sure. So the PS4, like we said before, is in the lead right now as far as sales are concerned, hovering, I think, around 75 or 80 million consoles, and Xbox One's about half of that.
Yeah.
So earlier today, I'd heard news about Xbox, there were leaks about an internal presentation stating that there were going to be mods that were going to be placed into like the Xbox One store, a la kind of like the Steam Workshop.
Yeah.
So that people could easily have mods integrated into the games and stuff. So just to bring it back to the overall Xbox experience and what we're talking about with Xbox being kind of the person catching up, it's great. We keep seeing things coming out for the Xbox, and we keep seeing these kind of cool steps they're taking, especially after tripping up with their initial release, which we can talk about as well.
Yeah.
So they're taking these cool little steps, and people still don't seem to be extremely interested. There are people interested in the Xbox One.
There are people. I'm one of them.
And the Xbox One and the Xbox One X, you know, they're great consoles.
It's really weird, and it's shocking to see this. Now, let's start off, let's roll it back a little bit. Let's go all the way to the beginning with the Xbox One initial launch.
Yes, thank you.
Now, when they showed it off at E3, it was competing directly against the PlayStation 4, and let's just make it pretty fair, they lost.
Right.
Yeah, so, they lost hard on that.
So basically what happened was, this was in 2013, right? So it's already been a few years. But yeah, so basically what happened was Xbox, they had their presentation, they showed off the Xbox One and said, hey, we're going to bring out this awesome machine. It's going to have all these capabilities. It's going to be kind of TV-centric. We're calling it One because we're going to have kind of everything in one box. It's an entertainment box. And it's going to come with a Kinect. You need the Kinect. Every console will have a Kinect.
Yep.
$500.
So the price wasn't good. And then when they started talking to the CEO of the time, not the CEO, the head of Microsoft's
Don
division.
Matrick?
Yeah, Don Matrick. So Don Matrick was the head of the Xbox division. When they started having conversations with him, unfortunately, it's from the opinion of all gamers out there, he pretty much fumbled every interview that he had, including a major one where he talked about servicemen in the military basically not being able to use the Xbox One because they would need an extra connection or an internet connection that was live. So to them, he said, get a 360. Now, the way that came out sounded very vulgar and mean-spirited to people that are serving in the military. So the whole thing was just not really good.
Yeah. And that's just Xbox's side of this initial release. I don't want to dwell on it for too long, but yeah. And then there was the PS4 presentation where they just kind of dropped the mic and said $400 and walked away.
And then they did like a little video as well, because one of the things that the Xbox One initially was trying to do was become more of a digital front system. And by that I mean you would buy a game on a disc, and the disc would go into the system, and the system would be locked to that disc, and you wouldn't need the disc anymore. You just throw it away, right? You didn't have to share games or anything. There was some neat ideas at play.
Not that you didn't have to share games, you couldn't.
Yeah. That was the thing.
You couldn't share games. That was a big problem.
So one of the problems was the way that they kind of achieved this, the way that they kind of distributed this idea at E3 annoyed everyone. And when I mean everyone, I mean absolutely everyone. Because when Sony came forward, they recorded a small video in the back room like 2 seconds before they got on stage. And they said, how do you share games? And that was it. They basically destroyed Microsoft in 2 seconds. It was insane. I've never seen anyone do that. It's one of the most interesting, craziest events that ever happened at E3. But with that being said, the console that we saw at E3 is not the console that eventually came out.
It's completely different, and I'm glad that we're jumping to that, because it sounds like we're just raining on Xbox's parade this whole time right now. What the Xbox One is today is very different, and it is a very cool approach to gaming. It's an experience that I appreciate. but it seems like it's not getting the
love.
Yeah, the same love from your typical gamer.
So the Xbox One no longer needs a Kinect, as most of you out there know. The original Xbox One that was released on the market was a bulky beast of a thing. It was really big. It had a whole bunch of features in it that the newer Xboxes technically still have, but it's been a streamlined approach. They removed a lot of stuff. There's a lot of elements that didn't work when it first came out, and there's a lot of bugs and features that just seem to not really click. By the time they released the Xbox One S, I have to say that system was one of the best, if not the best Xboxes Microsoft had ever released. Then when they introduced the Xbox One X, which is basically just an S but a little bit smaller and a little bit more powerful, then they basically introduced the most powerful video game console on the planet right now. So by doing all these things, they basically took what was a bomb of a system. And the original Xbox One I'm not a fan of. There's games on it that I appreciate, but when it came to the overall presentation of the system and the hardware and the design, I think it just fell on its face. The moment you got those newer Xboxes, though, that's when the system really started to come into its own and show how good of a system it really was.
I think a big part of this is because when we did hear about that initial Xbox presentation or what the machine would be, it seemed like it was cut off from everything. Like, sharing is going to be weird, and they didn't have a lot of answers, or they had bad answers to the questions that people had. And now it seems like they just kind of listened and things are more open, right? So now if you have an Xbox One S or an Xbox One X, you have like a system that has like higher fidelity. You can have like HDR. Is HDR supported in S as well as the X?
Xbox One S, yes, but the original Xbox doesn't have it.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah, but that's just just a couple of things that the newer experience offers. One of the big things that I love and that we've been enjoying is the backwards compatibility, which wasn't supposed to be a thing.
Yeah,
right.
And they initially said it wasn't going to be backwards compatible with 360 games, and they said that at E3, and then a little while later they're like, actually, LOL, we can do that. And the thing is, that kind of really annoyed people because they avoided getting an Xbox One because they didn't believe they could go forward with their system. But then suddenly they could with a selection of games that has been increasingly getting bigger and bigger. So this was actually something interesting that you mentioned too. When you look at an Xbox One now, there really isn't like a large selection of exclusives to the system. Now there are console exclusives, meaning that if you want to play it on a console, you just get on the Xbox One.
Right.
But virtually everything that's being released on the platform can also be played on PC. There are some that don't exist out there on anything else. Like I think Halo 5 that basically is only on the Xbox One, but I don't really think anyone cares because that's not the best Halo game in my personal opinion. But when it came to the exclusives on the system, by going backwards to the 360 and Xbox One library and allowing those to move forward, you thought, well, now you've got exclusives on the system.
Right. So that's the thing. When I thought about like today, I don't play an Xbox One all that much, but the reason I do want to play one is for exclusives, and there are no newer exclusives for the Xbox One that I can't really play on the PC as well. So the exclusives I'm talking about are older games, Xbox games or Xbox 360 games. I can play Panzer Dragoon Orta.
That's true.
Or I can play like Crimson Skies.
And then there's a bunch of games that are actually performing better on the Xbox One than they were on the original Xbox 360 because that backwards compatibility actually has this really good advantage of making use of the hardware.
Yes.
If you have a frame lock game,
That's
so
incredible.
if you had a frame lock game at like 30 frames per second, but the game never really ran traditionally that well at 30 frames per second, now the game would basically run consistently at 30 frames per second. And you also have advantages with the Xbox One X where the games are now running at higher resolutions. They've really done the most amazing thing of actually making their back catalog probably the most impressive anyone has ever done in any console since.
I was looking into this today, and even some 360 games have HDR support now. Out of nowhere. It's like Mirror's Edge, you can play with HDR.
Because, right?
Yeah.
Like they've literally have done the best work possible. Now, when this system originally came out, when it was originally announced, it was a mess. The features were not there. There was just so much wrong with it. But I have to say, if I were to take all the console experiences I have, now I'm just specifically stating a home console release, all right? I'm not talking about portable systems because the Switch is really its own little beast. It does a lot of interesting things, but because it's portable, it can't have the exact same features you find on the home console like that. The Xbox One X is at this current moment my favorite video game console on the market, and there's a reason. Now, we don't have a lot of exclusives on it, okay? That's pretty much a fact of life right there. But what you do get is your old games on the 360, on the original Xbox, running in ways they never could in the previous systems. You're getting consoles that you're getting games that are released on multiple consoles and multi-platform releases that are actually having these great experiences on the Xbox One X. The Xbox One X represents to me a promise or kind of like a solution to a problem that they had that has seemed to really come into its own, and it's become one of the best consoles you can possibly get. It's smaller, it's quieter, it's more powerful, and even at a power statement, I don't really care about that, but the library on that system keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
So I got questions. So we've said that the Xbox One X is a console that, you know, we both know it's powerful. It does offer a very compelling gaming experience. Why isn't there so much of an attachment there? Like, what's going on, and how can it be fixed? Because can it be fixed?
Well, it needs to have exclusive games. That goes without saying. I mean, they have to start releasing games that are exclusive to the console, not just PC or anything, but exclusive to the Xbox One platform. Now, I know Microsoft doesn't really want to do that because they're trying to bridge off into an ecosystem where they sell these games at the same time on the Windows storefront, which is fine if they want to do that. But they need to start introducing more games to the actual console itself that you can't find anywhere else.
Yeah, there's a reason why we have the term console seller, right? There are games that are released that are so appealing that you pick up the console for them.
Yeah.
Right? So with the PlayStation, we see a lot of console exclusives. Some have leaked over onto the Xbox, like Nier Automata, but you have games like God of War, the Uncharted's, Last of Us 2 could possibly be coming out on the PS4 as well.
It's true. You've got these really interesting ideas that are at play with Microsoft, but I think there's a couple things that they kind of fumbled with. Now, with the 360, they were the ones that introduced, or actually with the original Xbox, they were the ones that introduced a concept of paying to play games online. That was not really something you had seen in previous generations unless it was like a specific example of an MMO or something like that, or even going all the way back to the early days of online gaming where you'd have to use something like Heat.net. Look that up for some fun. So when it comes to modern days gaming, I really feel that Microsoft has done a lot to really show you good stuff, like their Game Pass. You pay a certain amount of money a month, and then you get access to like a ton of games,
and not just the same sort of catalog you'd expect from another service, like on the PS4, which, you know, their service has been a little.
Which by the way, those are streamed games.
Yeah.
You're actually getting actual digital files that you download on your system, and you play them, and they run perfectly.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of these games are day one, like first party.
That's true.
Xbox games.
Yes. Unfortunately, the ones that have been first party and being released day one have not been very good in my experience of it so far.
Sea of Thieves was one of them.
Sea of Thieves came out day one, the same day it launched in store. So when you had that pass, you just got to play it, right? Unfortunately, when people played it, they realized, wow, that was a thing, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why you probably saw that on Game Pass. But it's really, there's this idea here where they're trying to give you so much gaming for smaller values, and I actually think they should kind of go in this direction. If they need to sell better than their competitors, they need to start making things that are a competitive advantage on their system. The emulation of backwards compatibility with older games, right? This is really crazy because I honestly didn't think they were going to feature the support for original Xbox discs, but if you have original Xbox discs and you put them in your system, the games download a patch online. The patch is actually pretty much the entire game digitally downloaded, but then the game works.
And it's integrated into your library.
Yeah.
Like seamlessly.
They did that when they didn't have to do that, right? Like they could have easily just been like, oh yeah, we're supporting them, just go download them here.
I think there's an argument to be made that maybe they did have to do that. Maybe they did have to bring back these older titles to be in the news, to have something fresh, to kind of,
it could have been
to be out there, because we're not getting those pillars of excitement from a lot of the first party Xbox exclusives now.
It's true.
I feel like even though they are great games and they do have audiences, games like Forza, Gears of War, and Halo, it seems like the fervor for those games is being dialed down slightly.
Even if you were to compare the Switch and the PlayStation 4, the backwards compatibility on the Xbox is top notch. In fact, if I were to basically say at this moment, I think it is the best backwards compatibility any system has ever offered, ever. And I'm like going all the way back to generations, even considering the PlayStation 3, the original fat model that could play PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1 games. Those games were great and they ran great on the system. But with what Microsoft did here, they levied the power to make those games run better than they could in the past. And you didn't really see that with the PlayStation 2 games running on PlayStation 3. You saw
a slight
up-res, right? Which wasn't bad, but and that also happened with PlayStation 1 games, but the games didn't run better. But now you're getting these games running better on a completely different platform. Now, that being said, right, they've already done great work with that. I think in order to be competitive with Sony, at least, they need to start basically considering making the gold service free. I think that's something they need to do, because right now there's a lot of people out there who have to buy an Xbox One to play a game of some sort, and then they have to get the gold service to play with their friends. Well, why? What's the purpose?
Right.
Make everything Game Pass so that there's this big collection of video games they can download, and that way that already has its own value. But to go online and play games, why? Why do I need to keep paying for that online? Right. At this point in time, I now have 3 systems. The Switch is going to get its online service soon. PlayStation 4 has its online service, and now the Xbox. That's 3 online services I need, and I'm at a point where I'm just like, why even bother? I don't play Xbox One games online anymore. And there's a lot of games out there that actually don't work unless you have that gold service, because there's features of it that just knock off. For instance, one of my favorite games on the Xbox 360 arcade service was Perfect Dark, the remaster that just went way above and made the game better than it ever had been in the past. That game has multiplayer support, but that multiplayer support, like on local access, right, you need to be online to play it. It sucked. Like, it shouldn't be that way, but it is.
My worry is that even like, it would be big news to have gold go completely free, but I feel like the steps that they're taking have been so sort of like, they're like good, and for people that are really into like video game news and in touch with everything that's going on, we get excited, but it's still kind of lukewarm to the rest of the people consuming this entertainment.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
So I still worry about that. I still feel like we need these peaks. Like, we need, like, when God of War was a thing coming out, people got excited, right?
I'm not saying they don't need games. They definitely need games.
You already said. The first thing you said was they need first-party...
They need first-party games.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, in order to get people...
Exclusive
games. In order to get people really interested in it right now, they need to start really throwing their weight against the wall and just
do everything they can.
Yeah. Giving the gold service away for free would be a huge advantage for people, because people would be like, oh, if I buy a game on an Xbox One, not only am I getting better graphics than the PlayStation 4 if you get the Xbox One X, but I'm also getting the ability to play the game online for free. And then if you want that experience where you're getting like 4 games a month for free or whatever, and you got like, if you want that, that's what Game Pass is for. Game Pass will give you 4 random games a month for free, and then a library of games that you can just have, and people would want to spend money on that and keep that there, just like Netflix, right?
Yeah, it's a great service. One more very, very quick question before we wrap it up. What do you think about them just sort of like coasting until the next console generation? Because in 2 years we could have new consoles in front of us, and a lot of people are forecasting that.
When the PlayStation 1 went to the PlayStation 2, there was an increase in purchases. When the PlayStation 2 went to the PlayStation 3, there was a decrease. But one thing people tend to forget when you go to look at the numbers is that the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, by the end of their lifespans, almost lined up by just 1 million or 2, right?
Yeah, they caught up.
They got really close to each other.
PS3 caught up.
Jumping into the next generation with PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, basically it was kind of a free-for-all. Whoever could get it to work could get it to work. Sony did a whole bunch of revisions of the PlayStation 3 to such a disastrous point of basically removing amazing features from the system just to get it at a cheaper price point. And by the time they got to that point right there where they were releasing the PlayStation 4, they were just filled with a whole huge amount of rage of how bad it went last generation. So they basically took all these plays that Microsoft had done previously with the 360 and completely revolutionized the way way that people looked at the PlayStation model of gaming, including making an online service that people had to pay for to play games online, but then giving a whole bunch of value to that service. When they make the Xbox 2, they're definitely going to have to carry over the library of games that they have on the Xbox One. So the original Xbox, the Xbox 360, and Xbox One games carry over there. They can't just have the Xbox 2 have its own unique games that can't be, done anything with, right?
No.
So when they've done something like that, the next thing that's so important for them to do is they basically have to go, okay, we need to make sure that everyone that exists on the current Xbox One platform moves forward with us, right? And the only way you do that is if you give them value for what they've already purchased. So they have to make the Xbox One a powerhouse. I personally think that they should be staying, like at E3, they said, oh yeah, we're working on the next Xbox. Okay, sure, I know. Everyone's working on their next system, all right? But you don't tell anyone that because you just released the Xbox One X. It is really hard for gamers to look at that and go, well, why would I get an Xbox One X if you guys are already making the next system? It's a bad move. So what they need to do is when they introduce this next system, it's got to come out, they need to basically say 2 years from now, 3 years from now, or even if they really want to be super cheeky about it, just say, whenever Sony releases their next system, we'll release ours the year after. They need to do something like that. Because whatever Sony releases, if Sony decides to release a console that is as powerful as their next Xbox, it's another competition, and Sony's probably going to win because they're just taking the consumers they already have and moving them forward. I really feel like in order for Microsoft to win this, they just need to basically slow down a bit and fix the problems they already have in their own camp.
And I feel like that's what they've been doing. That's what they've been trying to do. Every step that they're taking seems like it's a bandage ever since the announcement in 2013.
Yeah. It never feels like they're taking that next step. It always feels
it's never a leap.
Yeah.
It's always like a little bandage here or there, right?
The Xbox One X is such an interesting system for all the benefits it has, but really realistically its focus isn't on better frame rates and stuff like that, though it does provide that. It's more or less on now you can play these games in 4K resolutions. But the gamers out there that have 4K TVs is a minimal number as it is. Yep. So there's not a lot of gamers out there willing to spend that kind of money on it. Now, I will agree that the people out there that do have 4K TVs, like we have 4K TVs, but we're video game reviewers, we need to have this stuff. The majority of consumers out there that don't have it, you might look at the Xbox One X and go, I don't really need that. That's what I think the Xbox One S was introduced for, was for those gamers out there that didn't want to have those experiences on that system, but we're really starting to flow away with weird naming schemes. We're no longer dealing with Xbox 360, we're now dealing with Xbox 360, One X, X. Like, it's getting confusing, it's getting a little bit muddled. I think average consumers are not really understanding what the message is, so they need to have like huge movements of marketing power that just basically goes, look, gold is free. You get to play with your friends online for free. You can't do that on Switch anymore. You can't do that on PlayStation. But with Xbox and Microsoft, you can do that. And not only that, cross-platform compatibility with your friends on your Xbox and on PC.
And not only that, but you have the legacy of games that carry over as well.
You basically just do a marketing campaign that's like the biggest game library on any system, which is true when you consider they've got original Xbox 360 and Xbox One games on there. Then they can say the biggest multi-platform compatibility so that you can play games with anyone basically on PC and Xbox, and just introduce those concepts. If they were to do a marketing push where they introduced this entire idea of basically a new brand of Xbox that was just a connected device that allowed you to play with anyone, any game you wanted, it would be a really big win for them. And I think that's the way that they can conceivably do it. Because if they don't do that, and the idea is to introduce another box that is just slightly more powerful, they're going to lose.
Right. That doesn't sell nowadays. We don't just need a slight graphical, tweak. We need something that makes you play better with other people, or makes like your overall experience just fun. We want to have fun with these boxes.
Because what are they going to do with the next system? Are they going to go backwards now and start not releasing open experiences that exist on the Xbox and the PC? Like, you don't move backwards once you've moved forward. So this isn't a smart move. You've already introduced the concept that you don't want like Xbox exclusives to just the system. So now you basically have to work in a way that makes sense for the entire marketplace that they have. I feel like you should be able to buy an Xbox game, like a disc, and put it in your PC, and it should just work on your PC. There should be no reason now why those things don't work together. And I feel that Microsoft is getting closer to that point. but they just need to make the messaging work. Understandably, though, the reason why they really fell in this generation was because of what happened with Don Matrick and everybody else at E3 during that presentation.
Yeah, they tripped out of the gate, and it wasn't the same team behind the Xbox One as was the 360.
There's some folks there, right?
Yeah, but just a few.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the 360 was incredibly successful, and then there was this big sort of, mashup of different people and stuff for the next iteration of the console, and it didn't work.
And that's pretty much it. Really, realistically, that this entire lifespan of this console has felt like a fix.
Right.
A fix to a problem that was only what was that presentation? 2 hours at most?
Yeah.
2 hours destroyed Microsoft's Xbox platform for years.
Right.
And at this point, they've been doing such a good job, it's just crazy.
So yeah, we're looking for them to continue their jog up until they can leap into the next console generation, I guess. So.
Yeah. But what do you guys think?
Wow.
Do you like the Xbox platform? Do you think it's one of the best systems that exist on the market right now? Or do you believe that Sony is always going to be ahead? Or hey, eventually Nintendo might actually catch up and surpass Microsoft? Do you think that's going to happen? Let us know in the comments below.